All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore a really powerful shift in how we think about education. We're talking about turning assessment from just a tool for grading into a real engine for learning. We'll look at how we can build classrooms filled with students who truly own their learning journey and the incredible teachers who guide them there.
So let's start with this big idea. What if every single quiz, every project, every piece of feedback wasn't really about the score at the end? What if, instead, it was all about giving students the tools to understand and, actually steer their own learning? That's the core concept we're digging into.
Now, to really get why this matters so much, we have to talk about this idea from some landmark research by Paul Black and Dylan William. They called the classroom a black box. Think about it. We know what goes in, the students, the teachers, all the resources, and we definitely measure what comes out, the test scores, the grades. But what happens inside that box? That whole messy, amazing process of learning? Yeah, that part is often a total mystery. So here's our game plan for cracking open that black box. First, we'll talk about a new goal for assessment that goes way beyond grades. Then, we'll meet the two stars of the show, the assessment-capable learner, drawing on John Hattie's work, and the assessment-capable practitioner, guided by research from the IB. After that, we'll get practical with some real strategies. And finally, we'll tie it all together and see how these two roles are really two sides of the same coin.
Okay, so how do we unlock it? How do we see inside that box? Well, the key isn't another big, scary final exam. Nope, it's something much more dynamic: formative assessment. This is all about shining a bright light on the learning process while it's actually happening.
What I love about this definition here is that it's a process. It's not a thing you do once. It's this ongoing conversation, this loop of seeking and interpreting evidence. And look who's involved: the learners and their teachers. It's a team effort, all focused on answering three basic but crucial questions. Where are we now? Where are we trying to go? And what's the next step to get there? And get this, the impact is huge. We're talking about an effect size of between zero point 0.4 and 0.7. Now, that might just sound like a bunch of numbers, but to give you some perspective, an effect size of 0.7 is so powerful it could take a country from being average in international math scores and launch them into the top 5. Seriously, this isn't just some small tweak, it's a total game changer. So if formative assessment is the engine, who's in the driver's seat? Well, more and more, it's the student. And that brings us to this amazing concept from John Hattie, the assessment-capable learner. This is a student who isn't just a passenger in their education. They're an active, engaged agent. So for a student to really be assessment-capable, they need their own internal GPS, and it runs on these three simple but profound questions. First, they have to know the destination. Where am I going? They need a super clear picture of the goal. Second, they have to be able to find themselves on the map. Okay, where am I right now? And then, the most important part, they have to figure out the route. How do I close that gap between where I am and where I need to be? So, how do we help students get good at answering those questions? Well, researcher D. Royce Sodler broke it down into three key things. First, kids have to know what good looks like. It can't be a secret. Second, they need this skill called metacognition, which is really just the ability to think about their own thinking, to look at their work and judge it against that goal. And third, seeing the gap isn't enough. They need a whole toolbox of strategies they can use to actually fix their work and get better. Of course, these empowered, assessment-capable students don't just magically appear. They are carefully and purposefully cultivated by empowered teachers. And this brings us to that other side of the coin, the assessment-capable practitioner, which is a big focus of the IB framework. You can think of an assessment-capable teacher as having a few different jobs. They're an architect who designs crystal-clear rubrics so students always know the target. They're an interpreter who can look at all kinds of assessment data and use it to adjust their teaching on the fly. And maybe most importantly, they're a coach who gives really specific, descriptive feedback and teaches those metacognitive skills so that eventually students can coach themselves. Okay, so we've got the theory down. We have our capable learner and our capable practitioner. But what does this actually look like day to day in a classroom? Let's zoom in on a couple of really concrete strategies. This right here, based on Grant Wiggins's work, illustrates one of the biggest and most powerful shifts a teacher can make. Look at the stuff on the left, good job, or just a letter grade. It tells the student nothing about how to get better. It's a total dead end. But the feedback on the right, that's a roadmap. It tells you exactly what you did well and gives you a clear, doable next step. This is the kind of language that helps a student answer, how can I close the gap? And building that metacognition we talked about, it doesn't have to be some big, complicated thing. It can be as simple as giving students a sentence starter like this one. Just prompting a student to think, a similar task I have had before is, before they even start working. That gets them to pull on their past experiences and start thinking strategically. It's a small move by the teacher that builds a huge skill in the student. So as we start to pull all these threads together, a really clear picture starts to form. This isn't about a student program over here and a teacher training program over there. It's one single, deeply connected vision for what learning can be. And here it is, the crucial point. They're like two interlocking gears. You just can't have one without the other. You cannot have assessment-capable learners if you don't have assessment-capable practitioners. The teacher's skill in setting clear goals and giving that roadmap feedback, that's what creates the environment where students can learn to take the wheel themselves. So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. No matter what your role is, teacher, administrator, even a student listening to this, what's one small thing you could do tomorrow? Could you just try rephrasing one piece of feedback to make it more descriptive? Or maybe just ask one question that makes someone pause and reflect on their own learning? Because really, it's in all those small, consistent moves that this entire incredible transformation gets started.